I wandered about the Northwest for many years. Had fortune been my object, I should have succeeded in obtaining it, more than one opportunity for great worldly advancement having been placed within my reach, as if to tantalize me with the sight of things that offered to other men so much pleasure, but which could not be otherwise than worthless in my jaundiced vision. I could not abide long in one place, but felt condemned to wander up and down on the face of the earth, a restless spirit to whom is denied the enjoyment of all that men hold dear. There have been periods when I have thought of suicide as the best means of escaping from myself. But from self-murder I have been impelled by that fear of something after death, which doth make cowards of us all. But it is impossible for any human power forever to continue the suffering that it has fallen to my lot to experience. And now, many years after the perpetration of the crime that destroyed my peace, far from the land of my birth among strangers, and at the very outpost of civilization, I find death enveloping me in his cold embrace. Though I cannot otherwise than shiver at his touch, and dread must follow from his triumph over me, my end will be to myself a release. I have made this confession in the hope that good may flow from it, and to relieve my mind from a burden under which it has long been depressed. I have endeavored to be plain and simple in my narrative, and have not sought to harrow upon the imagination of the reader. If I have not introduced the names of others into my account of an event that once was of consequence enough to excite a nation, it is because I have not wished to create prejudice against those who were connected with my associates, but who were not associated with their criminal proceedings. Whether my story will have any effect on the public mind, I know not, nor do I care. Now that years have elapsed since the abduction and murder of Morgan, people are capable of forming a righteous judgment respecting that great crime, and they no longer blindly involve the innocent in the condemnation with the guilty. Reader, have charity on me, and remember that you have not been tempted as I was. Criminal as I am also heart-stricken penitent, and have been made to exist, as it were, on a gibbet of our own erection. All right, so what happened here? As usual, we have to read between the lines to understand what really happened. So we have Mr. William Morgan here. He's writing a book exposing the first 3 degrees of Masonry. And due to pressure from his order, he was locked up for a $3 bar tab and not returning a jacket. That was the worst they could lock him up for. How much time was he looking at? Some of these witches got in his head. The one that encouraged all these brothers to go and kill this man, that was a Vatican handler. Somehow he didn't draw the D, did he? He didn't draw the death card, did he? But he had his minions do it. But William Morgan is there locked up. He was panicking. They got in his head. So he began to balk. He needed to get out of prison so bad that he decided that he's going to go with these people that locked him up. Even though that the jailer's wife was like, you can't take him, and she was defending him. He then made an agreement. When all this pressure came down from the order to go with them. So that was his first step in the wrong direction after they got into his head. So they bring him to this prison in Canada, or wherever they really brought him. And he makes an interesting statement at the end of this. He then commenced a rambling discourse and begged to know if there was no avoiding his fate, promising to give up all his papers, to go to any part of the world we might send him, and there reside, seeking to have no communication with America. and living a different life from that he had formerly pursued, which I understood that he would maintain his Masonic obligations. Just as I was about to reply to him, my comrades came into the door of the magazine which they opened and beckoned me to come out to them, which I did. They informed me that they had procured a boat. Now these guys own a prison. They got stagecoaches. A little rowboat isn't hard to come by. What type of boat were they talking about? More like a ship, maybe. Who do you think came and got him? Who came and got him? Vatican came and got him. Word on the street, dumpster Vatican got him. So he balked. After the pressure was put on him, he agreed that he's not going to defend America. He's not going to fight no more. He would go anywhere in the world, they would send him. So he got rolled by the Vatican. He disappeared within the Vatican. So that death might have been symbolic. I'm not saying that these scumbags want to kill him, but if he's there balking and crying and bitching out, they might just take him into their order, say he's scared straight now. Or scared crooked, I should say. And they got him. And he's broken, and he's beat, and he won't ever try to cross them again, so he'll be a good slave from then on in, won't he? So that's what they're talking about when they change somebody. There's all ways to change somebody. They slaved him out. They didn't dog him out, they slaved him out. So what you also can notice is maybe this was a ritual that had something to do with Hiram Abiff. Now I'm reading out of this reprint, the Michigan Historical Reprint Series, reprints from the collection of the University of Michigan University Library, and it's called Masonry Revealed and Illustrated, with a sketch of the life, abduction, and murder of William Morgan. And then there's a catalog of popular books for the trade, and there's kind of like different books that would be more like kind of a conspiracy catalog. So just a word to the wise, they have in the back of this a key to the higher degrees of Freemasonry that goes on to Mark, Master, Past Master, Most Excellent Master, and Royal Ark Master. And reading this is kind of funny. I think that's disinformation. I think a lot of this is disinformation. So if you guys come across this book, be warned that the reason this was eventually printed was they put a lot of disinformation in this book as well. However, I'll read some of the stuff that Morgan supposedly compiled, having to do with the third degree of Masonry, or the Master Mason degree. The third or Master Mason's degree, the traditional account of the death, several burials, and the resurrection of Hiram Abiff, the widow's son, admitted as facts. This degree is certainly very interesting. The Bible informs us that there was a person of that name employed at the building of King Solomon's temple, but neither the Bible nor the writings of Josephus nor any other writings, however ancient, of which I have any knowledge, furnish any information respecting his death. It certainly is very singular that a man is so celebrated as Hiram Abiff, who was an arbiter between Solomon, king of Israel, and Hiram, king of Tyre, universally acknowledged as the third most distinguished man then living, and in many respects the greatest man in the world, should pass off the stage of action in the presence of King Solomon, 3,300 grand overseers, and 150,000 workmen, with whom he spent a number of years, and neither King Solomon, his bosom friend, nor any other among his numerous friends ever recorded his death or anything about him. I make these remarks now, hoping that they may induce some person who has time and capacity to investigate the subject and promulgate the result of their investigations. I shall let the subject rest where it is at the present, if it is not intended that it should form any part of this little volume. The principal object of this work is to lay before a world a true history of freemasonry, without saying anything for or against it. The conductor says to the candidate, "Brother, in further imitation of our Grand Master Hiram Abiff, let us retire at the south gate." They then advance to the junior warden, who represents Jubilah, one of the ruffians, who exclaims, "Who comes here?" The room is dark, or the candidate is hoodwinked. The conductor answers, "Our Grand Master Hiram Abiff." "Our Grand Master Hiram Abiff?" exclaims the ruffian. "He is the very man I wanted to see." Seizing the candidate by the throat at the same time and jerking him about with violence, he says, "Give me the Master Mason's word, or I'll take your life." The conductor replies, "I cannot give it now, but if you wait until the Grand Lodge assembles in Jerusalem, if you are found worthy, you shall receive it. Otherwise you cannot." The ruffian then gives the candidate a blow with a 24-inch gauge across the throat, on which he fled to the west gate, where he was accosted by the second ruffian, Jubilee, with more violence. And on his refusal to comply with his request, he gave him a severe blow with the square across his breast, on which he attempted to make his escape at the east gate, where he was accosted by a third ruffian, Jubilee, with still more violence. And on refusing to comply with his request, the ruffian gave him a violent blow with a common gavel on the forehead, which brought him to the floor, on which one of them exclaimed, "What shall we do? We have killed our Grand Master Hiram Abiff." Another answers, "Let's carry him out of the east gate and bury him in the rubbish until low 12, and then meet and carry him a westerly course and bury him." The candidate is then taken up in a blanket, on which he fell and carried to the west end of the lodge, covered up and left. By this time the master resumed his seat. King Solomon is supposed to arrive at the temple at this juncture, and calls to order and asks the senior warden the cause of all this confusion. The senior warden answers, "Our Grand Master Hiram Abiff is missing, and there are no plans or designs laid down on the trestle board for the crafts to pursue their labors." The master, alias King Solomon, replies, "Our Grand Master's missing? Our Grand Master has always been very punctual in his attendance. I fear he is indisposed. Assemble the crafts," they mean fellow craft or second degree, "and search in and about the temple and see if he could be found." They all shuffle about the floor a while, and then the master calls them to order and asks the senior warden, "What success?" He answers, "We cannot find our Grand Master, my lord." The master then orders the secretary to call the roll of workmen and see whether any of them are missing. The secretary calls the roll and says, "I have called the roll, my lord, and find that there are 3 missing, Jubilee, Jubilee, and Jubilee." His lordship then observed, "This brings to mind a circumstance that took place this morning. 12 fellow crafts, clothed in white gloves and aprons, in token of their innocence, came to me and confessed that they 12, with 3 others, had conspired to extort the Master Mason's word from their Grand Master Hiram Abiff. And in case of refusal to take his life, they 12 had recanted, but feared the other 3 had been base enough to carry their atrocious designs into execution."